All right, we're Hamish Robertson from Auckland MMA. He's the head coach over there. So we've known each other for a while, but just because everyone else might not know you from over there in New Zealand, how about you give us a little bit of an origin story of how you got started in martial arts and how you ended up head coach of Auckland MMA?
I basically started my martial arts training in Brisbane. A long time ago, I started a little bit of kickboxing with Mitch Othello, who was one of the best heavyweights in Australia, in West End in Brisbane. I trained with them for a little while. I dropped out. I did a few traditional martial arts, Aikido, ninjutsu, kung fu, tried everything. And then I found Shindo on the Gold Coast with Kerry Dunn, and he really started that off. I think that was 97. I
Yeah, he's
started
still
training
around.
there.
Very
He
done.
is. I actually spoke to him yesterday. He's still a good friend. Trained there for a couple of years. Then I went to London and stopped training, worked, and came back to Brisbane. And I trained with Darren McKean doing jiu-jitsu, and then moved to New Zealand and started at Strike Force with Neil Swales and Aaron Boyce and Carl Weber. And yeah, I think 2007 or 2008, I started my own gym, and we renamed it Auckland MMA in 2010. And my wife, who's a jiu-jitsu black belt, Van, she teaches the jiu-jitsu, and I teach the MMA and kickboxing.
Man, that's awesome. And you know what? The first time I met you, so when I started martial arts, I mean, how I hooked up fights myself was actually an internet forum.
Yeah,
And
Infinite MMA.
yeah, there was an
Yeah,
internet. We used to hook up fights on the internet, and people used to talk about MMA on the internet on this internet forum. Like before Facebook and everything else, like promoters and matchmakers and all sorts of interesting people were on there. Then it's such a thinking back, it's such a strange experience because now it's so well um, networked from people. What was it
yeah.
like when you started with Carl Weber and all those guys
Um,
in New
it
Zealand?
was basically like I had my first fight on 2 days' notice, flew over to Australia and fought on XFC. Someone pulled out, I jumped in, I lost. And basically, any flight you took was short notice. If they wanted you to fly from New Zealand to Australia, they only tried to bring you over on the short notice. But yeah, it was hard to get fights. There was virtually nothing over here. One or two fights in New Zealand, and yeah, it was very difficult. But again, it was MMA.tv or Infinite MMA forums that you'd pick your fights on. That was the
Yeah,
only way.
and now, I mean, on 2 days' notice, unless your guys were ready all the time, you'd never let someone take a fight like that, would you?
No, no, hell no, no. It just doesn't happen anymore.
Because that's the interesting thing, right? There has to be a willingness for us to change the way that we do things for better, right? Like, I mean, my first coaches didn't really support me at all. Like I spent most of my time fighting self-coached, and it wasn't from not asking people to. It was just the fact that they didn't have anyone support them, so they weren't willing to
Yeah,
support me. So now, like if your gym claims to be a mixed martial arts gym or a Thai boxing gym for that matter, or a boxing gym, and you can't teach people to eat correctly and cut water weight correctly, you're probably in the wrong gym. That's something that we should all know we have a responsibility to do now. What are some of the big changes that you think you've seen in mixed martial arts or combat sports since it started?
mainly training smarter. Like the way people train is a lot different. They actually train MMA. They don't train jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and wrestling. They put it together now. That's one of the biggest things. It's not, you don't have to go to three different places for one thing. You might go to different places or train with different people to upskill stuff, but a lot of places know how to put it together. Also, the sparring, I think people are relaxed on the sparring. It's not a fight 3 times a week in the gym. You're not trying to kill each other. You're trying to look after each other and get people through the fight camps without injuries. I mean, you've had how many fights have you had where you haven't been injured? None.
Oh yeah, not too many. I kind of had a thing where I refused to pull out of fights myself. Like it was a mental thing. It was a mental thing for me too. Like I've never pulled out. I'd never pulled out of a fight. I just made sure that I trained around things, and if I said I was going to do something, I turned up. Which again, like I mean, that's a quality that
That's a martial arts quality that most people don't actually have these days.
Yeah,
The amount of pullouts we get is crazy.
it is crazy. It's definitely, I think, there's a lot of people playing at it that maybe aren't smart enough to organize the more intelligent training, or go, okay, your ankle's sore, but like let's do some conditioning. Let's roll in these positions. Like, and you can still train this week, and let's see how it feels next week. There's definitely there's ways around it. Again, it's part of the evolution. Definitely, more intelligent sparring happens now, which is nice. Yeah,
There's always a time and place for a bit of old fashioned hard sparring, but you can't do it 3 times a week or twice a week. It's not good for your head.
Yeah, it has to. Yeah, it has to happen. Just it'll happen naturally too. Like with the competitiveness of people, it will happen naturally as well. That's interesting. What do you think are some of the biggest problems that you see with new guys when they come to gym and they like want to fight UFC, or they're thinking about fighting before they've even started training? How do you manage that?
I basically, everyone who messages me, regardless of what they tell me, I put them in a beginner's class. We have a fundamentals program at the gym. You have to get through that before you do the other stuff. And I get people telling me they're street fighters, telling me they want to fight UFC. They do all this stuff. And my standard answer is come to a beginner's class. Usually once they do that, then they start to realize that, oh, maybe I don't actually know what I'm doing. But a lot of people talk a lot, and they don't have the attitude or the commitment to actually follow through with the training. I personally prefer the people who do it for fitness, and they do it for a while and they just want something different, and then they decide they want to spar and then maybe fight like that. Those are the people I find who actually stick around and actually do really well. The ones who walk into the gym and tell me, the ones who walk into the gym and tell me they want to fight and they're going to do this and that, those are usually the first ones to pull out. They drop maybe a month of training and then they drop off. And I'm like, okay, cool.
That's a real common story in martial arts gyms. I think everywhere, and I think part of that attitude too is, like, I mean, I encourage them a little bit. I'm like, yes, sweet man, yep, cool. As long as you can make it to, like a couple of months of training, and then turn up to sparring, like for 6 to 12 weeks in a row, and then come ask me again. And it's funny to watch them fall by the wayside, because I even have good people sometimes that just refuse to make the commitment on Saturdays, and I assume to myself that that's a little bit of self-sabotage. Like, you don't really want to fight if you can't make that 1 hour on Saturday. If you can't make that sacrifice and organize your life around it, then fighting's not for you, like, at least not on my team anyway, because that's when we do our competition sparring at that time, and we're not organizing an extra time for you. No.
Well, we have like most gyms, like we have good fighters, but that's maybe 10% of our gym. The other people pay for the gym, and like we have a lot of members, a lot of people who just train for fitness. And I'm lucky enough that we've been going for 10 years now, that we actually have some really good guys that don't fight, that I can call them up and they come in for sparring, and they can hang with all the pros. They can do whatever I want. So we're quite lucky with that base. And some of them never fight. Some of them don't want to. They just train for fun. So I never push anyone. It's always an option. And if people can't make the commitment, no stress. Don't fight. Easy. Do a jiu-jitsu comp or something like that.
I remember Kavanaugh put that in his book. He's like, I never ask anyone to fight. And since I read that, I've never asked anyone. I actually put obstacles in front of people. It's like, oh, I want to have my first kickboxing fight. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the obstacle is you need to turn up to this many sessions and you need to spar. And then they're like, I want to get out of padded fights. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the obstacle. Now you want to get out of padded fights. You have to do this many runs a week and you have to achieve this level of fitness. And I start putting, like I actually do the opposite. I don't make it easier for you. I'm like, okay, well, here's the standards that you need to reach that level. I want to fight MMA. Okay, well, you're going to strike and grapple every day and you're going to do conditioning, and just start putting all these things in front of them that I think are essential to success. And if you're not willing to do those things that are essential for success, I'm not going to sit up at night in hospital with you while you're having a concussion. I'm not going to do it, And if I've done everything, then I'm happy to sit there in hospital with you because you made the sacrifices to make it happen. So I think that's important for all the coaches out there that might be listening to this, that you don't have to drop your standards to make it fit somebody if you know that like the chances are if they don't do all these things they're going to get hurt.
Yeah, well, at our gym we have the fundamentals for beginners, then we have the general classes. Then once you get through those, you know your stuff, whether kickboxing or jiu-jitsu, you get to go to the advanced class. For kickboxing, though, that's where the kickboxing fighters train. And then we have fighters MMA classes. And basically, I make people work to get in those classes. You're going to do probably 6 months at the gym before you get in. And even then, it's like, if you're not ready, you're not getting in. If you're not ready to spar, you're not sparring. And the fighters class is basically only for people who actually want to fight and or are the people who are going to be good training partners for the MMA fighters. If you're not one of those, you will never get in.
Yeah, I love that. It's a good system.
And it makes it easy. Like, can I come to this class? Can you do this, this, and this? No, then no. And it also means people have got goals to achieve. That's my goal to get in. Cool. People ask, how long will it take? Well, depending on you, it could take 6 months. It could take 2 years. Yep. I don't know how fast you learn, how fast you train. I don't know what your attitude's like. If you train twice a day for 6 months, you'll definitely be in. But if you train once a week for 6 months, then you're probably going to be 3 or 4 years.
Yep, and that's the key word for any aspiring kind of martial artists, combat athletes, or anyone out there. What you don't understand is that, like, I mean, the techniques are all out there available, and most gyms will be able to do it. If not, you could definitely, if you're in a place where you don't have a great gym, there's so many instructionals you can buy, but your attitude is the number one thing that will make you either a successful competitor or not, or a successful student or not. It's number one thing.
Yeah, and that's like I tell everyone, you've got to be a good training partner. If you're a good training partner, then people want to train with you. They're going to help you. You're going to learn faster. If you're not a good training partner, no one wants to train with you. Who's going to help you train for a fight?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that again. Look, I'm sitting in here. I wonder if we can see it. There we go. I put team courage on. I wanted everybody to know that, like, we're a team. I don't particularly love the word family, but because a team's something that you choose. Like a team is something that you actually have to actively take
work
part
towards.
in, or
100% agree.
Or you get cut from it. You can't cut people from your family, but you can definitely cut people from a team.
Yeah. You can disown them from a family, but it's a bit more difficult.
Yeah, a bit more difficult. Yeah, that's cool. So, I mean, obviously, you run a martial arts gym. You love martial arts. What's the number one thing you reckon your students get from martial arts that they couldn't get from any other type of physical training?
That's a hard one.
A good one.
Yeah, it is. You're going to make me think. Shit, haven't done that for a while. Probably confidence and a bit of self-growth. When you learn how to train, when you train martial arts and you actually put it to the test in jiu-jitsu and sparring, it gives you a sense of confidence that you think you can look after yourself. I say think because not everyone can, even if they spar and train. It's it's different, but it gives them a confidence, and it's not just in their training; it's throughout their life. If you're good at if you achieve something in martial arts, I think it flows through. The confidence you have in yourself will follow you into other aspects of your life. It's also, like you say, with the team. When you go through, you've been in the army, so you probably understand this more than anyone. When you go through shit with people, like hard shit, when you do hard training, you go through those things with a group of people, you end up very tight with them, and those people will have your back no matter what. And I think that's especially when you have the fight team and the training, that's what it does. Those guys, like, you go through hell together, and it creates a good team, almost a family, almost.
Yeah, yeah. Community suffering does
Yeah,
does build a little bit of bonding
yeah,
and suffer. You know, like if I told you someone's like, "Oh, Ian, I'm not confident," I'm like, "You want to be confident? You got to suffer." You know,
yeah,
like, you know, they'd be like, "Yeah, this guy's crazy," and I'm like, "No, no, no. If you can learn to deal with suffering, it's like no one can hurt you anymore. No, you know,
no,
like that's where the confidence comes from. Like you won't like this natural kind of confidence, anything that you want, like real confidence is born from knowing that you can fail, knowing that you can
yeah,
suffer. That other type of confidence is shallow, you know, like people who are fake it till they make it, that's
yeah.
shallow because what happens when you get put under the test and
You fall over.
and you fall over under that pressure. So yeah, I love that. Definitely, confidence is one of the things that I love, and community is one of the
Yeah,
things that I love about it as well. You know, there's so many benefits um, to it. You know, like it's just we could be here for hours trying to list them one by one, but it's
yeah,
always an interesting question to find out because you know, there's heaps of people that train with me, and like you said, only a few people will fight, but it's like even that woman that sat on the side of the mat doing fitness class, and then she's like, "What's this jiu-jitsu stuff?"
yeah.
And next thing you know, 6 months down the track, this woman's like hooking into jiu-jitsu, trying to choke grown men. You know, like
But
it's
those are the
freaking
people
amazing.
that last the longest.
Mm.
Those are the people that stick around for 10 years. It's not the people who come in and tell you they want to fight that stick around for 10 years. It's generally the people who, oh, I do this for fitness. Oh, maybe I want to try sparring. Maybe I want to try rolling. And those are the people who go through the grades and generally end up as black belts and stick at it more so than the others.
Mm. Now
Because it's not,
I'm going to
yeah,
backtrack a little bit on you a little bit too, because you said something interesting before, which I like. Because I mean, I've talked about this with my coach before. You mentioned that even though you're doing well in the gym, you actually might not be able to defend yourself. You know, which is interesting because I like this because there's a lot of jiu-jitsu places that are like telling people that they trained in the best martial art in the world, but they never roll with strikes. You know, and they don't know how to slip and hit a body lock. You know, like and all these other things. So real violence is actually quite different to sporting violence,
100%. Yeah.
and I actually loved watching Shogun and Nogueira fight the other week because I was like watching old Vale Tudo. You know, like you could have taken the gloves off them, and it was like, you know, they were taking the fight to different levels and different spots, um, trying to win and finish the whole time. So that was real interesting. What's your take on the difference between combat sports, self defense, and what do you how do you feel about it? Do you guys do self defense classes in your gym, or do you avoid it? And what's your stance on that?
We don't teach self defense. Like, we don't teach self defense classes. Um, I think what we do, the sport jiu-jitsu, the MMA, will definitely help you with self defense, but we do not claim that we teach self defense. I think if you teach self defense, you're basically looking at something along the lines of Krav Maga or you're looking at the old school jiu-jitsu, which is just self-defense, and you need to teach those in specific classes. If you don't train them all the time, I don't think they're going to work. I've worked as a bouncer before, done security stuff, and we've had to restrain people. And I used basic stuff I learned in MMA, and it was very effective, plus some stuff my old boss showed me, who was a CQB instructor, and it was very effective. And yeah, it worked. But I would not say I'm a self-defense expert. I train people for sport fighting. My wife teaches jiu-jitsu. Her focus is on sport, is basically on the sport of jiu-jitsu and learning the techniques. It's not on self-defense.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I kind of do the same thing, because the crowd that kind of it attracts, I think, want a quick fix. And I actually think jiu-jitsu and MMA are the best problem-solving skills, same as boxing and Thai boxing, the best problem-solving skills that you can use for self-defense. But you need an augmentation, like a self-defense course, or somebody that's willing to tell you about how violence is different. So my coach runs a bunch of things like that. But if you want to be able to defend yourself, you've got the next 10, 20 years to learn how to do it properly. And any kind of short course where you're not exposing yourself to like a competitive rule set, you'll never be able to problem solve all the chaos that happens in a violent scenario. Like, it's just it's too chaotic. There's too many other extraneous factors. Like, is there extra people? Is there a weapon? It's just silly to think that you're going to get that out of even like rocking up once a week and doing a Krav Maga class. It's like you're now trying to out violent people. Like, it's not going to happen.
I think if you train MMA, if you're regularly sparring, maybe even fighting, then when stuff happens, you're going to be a lot calmer, and you're possibly going to be able to deal with it. Obviously, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, it's always going to be a problem. I also think if you do jiu-jitsu and you're comfortable on the ground and grappling with people, if someone grabs a hold of you, you're probably going to react in a way that you don't think about. You just do, which should hopefully get you out of trouble. But again, if it's 2-on-1, 3-on-1, if it's in the street, someone's got weapons, knives, whatever, then I think the best thing you can ever do is run.
Yeah. There's still no real perfect solution, right? Like, besides arming yourself, there's still no real perfect solution. So if you're not willing to arm yourself, probably the best solution is still a mixture of some kind of grappling sport with some kind of striking sport, and also just being tactically and strategically aware. So the people that want the quick fix, just like fighters, I'm not really interested in helping them out. People who want to take the journey of martial arts with us, like, I'm happy to fill in the gaps for you strategically and tactically over time, but not if you're not willing to roll, not if you're not willing to box and kickbox spar. I can't give you all the answers you want, because you're not willing to commit deep enough into it.
The other danger is if you do arm yourself, you might run across someone who's better equipped to take your whatever you're armed with off you and use it against you. So, I mean, if you carry a knife, be prepared for someone to use it on you. It's just, I don't think it's a good idea.
And you just keep running more problems and more problems, Yeah, interesting. Well, let's leave this with one more tip. Okay, it's a good question that I've asked a few people before. What would you tell someone who's looking for a new martial arts club or looking for their first martial arts club? What would you tell them to look for?
Basically, go and try a couple of places out and look for, obviously you're going to look online and check for some reviews and stuff, or you might know someone, but you got to find a place that you actually feel comfortable training at. That's the number one. Go and try a few classes out at a couple of different places and see where you feel happy. Because if you're not happy, you don't feel comfortable there, you're never going to stick around.
Yeah, it's got to be fun, right? Like that's the
Yeah,
thing everyone forgets. Like training has to be fun, especially if you're going to do it long term and get real good.
yeah,
It's got to be fun.
yeah. We try to make training okay where we are. If you're a fighter, it's not fun, but that's a different sort of thing. We, well, you get fun out of different aspects of it.
Yeah. Look,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, at that time when you're in that competition kind of mode, when you're in athlete mode, you convince yourself it is fun. When you
yeah,
start edging a little bit closer to to 40, and you got these young guys that have done 5 years of training and they're only 21, 22. You're like, oh
yeah,
man. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm still deeply in love with martial arts. I love watching you guys over the ditch do your thing. Huge respect to you, Hamish, and the things you go do over there at Auckland MMA. It's great watching you guys build and get heaps bigger. So thanks for giving me your time today, mate. And if anyone's in Auckland, make sure you check out Hamish's gym.
yeah. Thanks, Ian. I also like watching what you do and what you say on your Facebook page, and hopefully, once all this stuff is COVID stuff has settled down, I'll get a chance to come and visit you. It's been a while since I've caught up live. I think it was last time was when you fought over here.
Yeah, well, I'd be keen to come over to Auckland and do a little bit of a trip with the family and check out some clubs too.
Always welcome. Anytime,
Oh,
just let me know.
thanks, brother.